Arkansas police, both county and state it appears, are caught on camera brutally beating a man. What's the context behind this? Well, I don't know yet, but I have seen the video, and I do have some questions about it, especially given the fact that we are so close to another election here. Don't get me wrong, this is bad no matter how we spin it, but when we come back and look at this, I know that a lot of times they pull BLM out when it's time to go back and do some electioneering, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the article, we'll talk about the suspicions, and we'll talk about everything that we can find so far on that. In other news, the pause on student loan borrowing is set to expire in just a couple days. So we'll be talking about what this means. The Secretary of Education has come out and said, oh yeah, no, don't worry, something good is going to be coming down here, but we'll talk about that and what's going on with that. Liz Cheney is now thanking all the Democrats who crossed the aisle to come back and help her try to win, as Democrats grapple with the idea of Liz Cheney for president in 2024. So we'll talk just a bit about that and where that goes. And in final news, CNN gets widely panned for an article talking about the fact that the illegal immigrants coming across the border are actually happy to be going to New York and DC. Who can blame them? If you're going to commit a crime, stay as far away from the place where the crime was committed as possible. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to the main channel. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We are back on the main channel. That is right. My 7-day suspension from YouTube is up. Which means, well, there are a few things that means. One of the things that means is that I do need to get more comfortable hitting the record button again, because it appears that I forgot that. But we'll either grab this or the bot off of Twitch and get that going again. But yeah, we'll be doing more audio platform. I want to do definitely some more of that, so we'll be doing some of that. And I decided to stay on the backup channel. Now I'm going to spend a little bit of time today. I need to run out and do some errands yet today, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time today doing a little bit of play testing and seeing if I can't get the Rumble to come back and work, and also the Odyssey as well. Whereas instead of going and streaming and uploading everything over from the main channel, which will be starting back up again, I know that I've gone over and manually put everything onto Odyssey and Rumble. I put it all over there manually, but, you know, to have the live stream and have another audience possibly over there, excuse me, an untapped audience as well, that's something that I've learned that I should probably be doing over the week. And I know that, excuse me, I don't know if the allergies are still going here. I spent like 5 hours in the woods yesterday. I know it was at least 3 because that's what the watch said, and almost 9 miles on the hiking boots. So if I'm a little bit out of it, that's probably why. But yeah, a lot of stuff that's going to be changing with this channel as we come up here and as we go. So some things to watch, some things to see with that. But we have got a ton of news to get to today, especially one where I actually am curious if they're going to come back and pull BLM back up out of hiding, because of the fact that we are going to be doing another police brutality video. So sit down, sit tight. Let's watch what's happening over here on the news, on the this wonderful Monday morning, and it's an awesome morning too, by the way. Right before I got started, I went and put all my carnivores outside because I want to see if I can't get them to grow a little bit better here. But I know that harvest season's coming up here. Our planting season is winding down, so well, we'll have to go back and see what's happening with that. All right, let's get to it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out Mr. Behavior, KTZed, who is going to be doing another live stream on true crime coming up here this coming Sunday. And we talked a little bit over the weekend here, and it seems like in a couple months I will probably be doing an appearance with her as well, talking about a case that divided Kenosha long before Jacob Blake did. So look forward to that as well. Go check out all those great programs as we come together and try to bring you a news and a culture by the people, for the people, by the common man, for the common man. So make sure that you go and check all those people out. All right, let's get into it, starting with finance. Oops, I'm still in the articles here. Looking in at finance, the Dow was down on Friday. Throughout the entire day, the futures dropped, and they never came back up out of this. The Dow ending yesterday at 33,706.74. And the Fed minutes are still on tap for that. That's going to be the big one here, but also, people are paying attention. I know that over my other window I'm seeing Disclose.tv is reporting that natural gas hit a 14-year high. That will not be on the stack today. We'll be putting that on for tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to keep that up here and make sure that we can continue to watch this here because, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one with both heating oil and natural gas going up, especially if we have to start sending it over to Europe. Once it gets cold, there's going to be a huge demand for that, and, you know, that dark winter that's coming, Biden might have been a year off, but we'll continue to watch this and see where this goes and what happens with this. Looking at your Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at $21,278 and 40 across 5 days. That is down $2,062 and 70 or 8.84%. And we see what we saw over the weekend where we had the significant drop bringing it back down below the 22,000 mark, and it fell just a little bit further to below the 21,000, and it clawed its way back. It's been bouncing and flirting its way around the 21,000 line all throughout the weekend here, bringing itself back up to just above so. On the one day, we see a major dip down below 20,000, or 21,000 rather, only to bounce back up and hold steady at that line. So we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes. Looking in at gas, are we seeing a reprieve, or are we seeing some last remnants of some really low gas prices from before? The Shell and the Quick Trip and Lodi are at 330 and 332 respectively. The BP and Lodi is at 337. Otherwise, going into the Madison proper area, we see 342s, 345s all the rest of the way across the board. This is slightly lower when we look at the Madison proper than it was at the end of the week, but the other side of that is we can look at this and start to wonder if we are seeing some remnants and the fact that we saw these 330s bounce off the 349s that we saw at Madison proper. But regardless, it does look like it's holding steady right now for that. Let's see what the investors have to say, starting with IBD. Let's get the live chat up so I can see who's here and who's going to tell me that my microphone is off if I do happen to make that mistake again. From Investors Business Daily, Dow futures fall as market retreat gains steam. Elon Musk makes this FSD move. From Ed Carson, Dow futures fell sharply Monday along with the S&P and the Nasdaq. The Fed chief Jerome Powell looming large this week. Natural gas prices surged as Russia plans to shut down a key pipeline yet again. The market rally pulled back last week from key resistance while Treasury yields moved back towards 3%. Highly valued growth names, which made big moves in the past 2 months, were among the biggest losers. Investors should wait and see how the market pullback plays out before adding new exposure. Bitcoin and other cryptos sold off hard on Friday but were relatively stable over the weekend. Warren Buffett stocks Apple and Occidental Petroleum are worth watching. Occidental broke out Friday as Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway won regulatory okay to lift its Occidental stake to 50%. Apple's holding Apple is trading right now around a trendline entry. Tesla, Celsius Holdings, AstraZeneca, Monolithic Power Systems, and Insulet are also near various buy points. Tesla CEO Elon Musk on Sunday announced a new price hike to the full self-driving system. Celsius and Monolithic are on the IBD leaderboard watch list. AstraZeneca is on Swing Trader. Monolithic Power Systems is on the IBD long-term leaders. Celsius, Monolithic, and Tesla are on the IBD 50. Monolithic and Occidental are on the IBD Big Cap 20. Insulet and AstraZeneca were IBD stock of the day picks last week. We'll see briefly what Powell has to say. Powell will give a policy speech Friday at the annual Jackson Hole meeting, the Jack Hole meeting, as they say. Powell has used this speech in prior years to mark notable policy shifts. It's unclear what he might say that would surprise markets. The Federal Reserve is in the middle of the rate hike cycle to combat high inflation. Policymakers may soon shift to smaller Fed rate hikes, but Powell may not be ready to tip his hand. He could indicate longer-term challenges such as the tight labor supply due to demographics that could spur the Fed to keep rates higher in the coming years. Markets are divided over whether the Fed will hike rates by 75 or a third straight time at the September 20th to 21st meeting, or opt for a half-point move. There was a tilt towards 75 basis points on Monday morning. Even after his speech, there will be several key economic reports before the September Fed meeting, including August jobs report and consumer price index. On the futures, Dow futures fell almost a full 0.9% versus fair value. The S&P fell 1.1% and the Nasdaq fell 1.5%. China cut its benchmark loan prime rate overnight to support a faltering economy. That's after the central bank lowered two other key policy rates last week. The 10-year yield fell 2 points to 2.97%, but yields rose on shorter-term maturities. Crude oil was little changed. U.S. natural gas jumped 5% as European nat gas prices screamed higher again. Russia's state-owned Gazprom said it would shut down the Nord Stream 1 pipeline again, claiming needed maintenance. Germany once again reaffirmed that it will not keep its last 3 nuclear plants open past December 31st. How? Please tell me how we have come to a point where Germany has decided that coal is the way forward. I don't even know why they're shutting down the nuclear plants. That hasn't come up in this stack, but also we've been way behind for the last week or so with all the Mar-a-Lago stuff. I'm happy to report, by the way, there is no Mar-a-Lago news on the stack for today. I think they finally realized that they played that hand out, and they're hoping that goes away quietly before they realize that, oh, man, we screwed up. The U.S. dollar is at parity with the euro once again. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, that's what we see for that. Let's grab one from Friday from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. stocks open lower with focus on the Fed. Just briefly here from Caitlin McCabe. U.S. stocks opened lower and government bond yields climbed Friday as investors sought to assess how aggressively the Federal Reserve will need to move to tame inflation. The S&P dropped 0.6% shortly after the opening bell, a day after the benchmark ticked up slightly. The Dow fell 191 points or 0.5%, the Nasdaq declined 0.9%. Friday's early losses suggest major U.S. stock indices could end the week lower, interrupting what has been a 4-week winning streak for the S&P. As of Thursday, the benchmark index had risen 0.1% for the week, while the Nasdaq was down 0.6%. After mounting a furious climb over the past 2 months, the U.S. stock market endured a stretch of choppy moves this week. As traders considered what the Fed might do at its September meeting, many investors for weeks have been feeling confident that inflation had possibly peaked and that the central bank would soften the magnitude of its future interest rate increases. Oh, I think we're just getting started on the inflation. Especially if what they say about the fertilizer and not being able to get it on the fields is true. It's going to get interesting, folks. But comments this week from central bank officials, combined with the release of the minutes from the Fed's July meeting, put the possibility of continued aggressive rate increases back in focus on Thursday. Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis President James Bullard said that he would lean towards a 0.75% increase in September. This feels like a reevaluation of whether there's been enough financial tightening, said John Rowe, head of the multi-asset funds at Legal and General Investment Management, and if there hasn't actually, we could get more pain from the central banks having to do more. So, that is what we see coming off of finance here. Do make sure that you check in with your official financial advisor, because nothing you've heard here is official financial advice. Always make sure you check with the people who know and do the numbers for a career on where you should go for that, or check into what it is that you're doing for yourself if you do prefer not to have anybody here. But do remember, this is not official legal financial advice. Let's get into the main news of the day, and I think we all know what this is going to be. From Twitter, Chuck Calesto, breaking now, video emerges of 3 Arkansas police officers beating a man outside a convenience store in Crawford County. There is, of course, no sound with this video. And yes, the volume is on. That I think is the part that went too far. I kind of, like, they had no idea that this person was filming, and I mean, we have no sound, we can't hear what they yelled at the person, but it almost sounds like, hey, stop filming this. That just blows my mind. What crime could possibly have been committed here? And I have not read any of the articles yet. But I gotta know, what kind of crime could possibly have been committed that makes it okay in their minds to grab a guy by the head and bash it into the concrete like that? And I've always said, I would rather go after the people who make the laws than the people who are blue collar, who are making about the same amount of money that I am, patrolling the street. Seeing something like this makes it really hard to stay in that position. And I do understand that we are in situations where some of the people that seek this out are going out to punish either people who were bad to them throughout the years, or think that they're going to do a difference, make a difference by being meat-headed and such. But man, when I look at something like this, it is horrendous. Let's read. Did I not archive this? Alright, we're going to archive that and come back to that in just a moment. Oh no, that was last archived 12 hours ago. Good. I know I had to archive the other one. Alright, from CBS 5. Deputy suspended Mulberry officer on leave after video shows violent arrest. Yeah, that's not even the half of what I would call that. From Haley Schmidt. 2 Crawford County deputies were suspended and a Mulberry officer is on admin leave after a video surfaced showing a violent arrest causing outrage on social media. In the video, the 3 law enforcement officers are seen atop the suspect, allegedly using excessive force, I think that's an understatement, at a convenience store in Mulberry, Arkansas on Sunday, August 21st. According to Sheriff Jimmy DeMonte with the Crawford County Sheriff's Office, around 10 a.m. Sunday, Alma police officers were called about a man making terroristic threats to a convenience store employee. The suspect allegedly spit on the employee and threatened to cut off their face. Sheriff DeMonte says the man then traveled back on a bike to Mulberry near exit 20, where the Mulberry officer and deputies met with him. The conversation began calm, but the sheriff says the man began attacking one of the deputies by pushing him to the ground and punching him in the back of the head, leading to what is seen on the video. In the video, the deputies and officers are seen holding the man down on the ground, kneeling on him, and slamming his face into the ground. Arkansas State Police are now investigating the incident while the CCSO holds an internal investigation. The CCSO released the following statement on Facebook. Statement reads, "We investigated ourselves and found that we did nothing wrong." Oh wait, no, that's not the statement. That's what's coming later on. In reference to the video circulating around social media involving 2 Crawford County deputies, we have requested that Arkansas State Police conduct the investigation, and the deputies have been suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. I hold all my employees accountable for their actions and will take appropriate measures in this matter. In reference to the video circulating social media involving 2 Crawford deputies, we have requested that, and I don't know what's supposed to be there. Posted by Crawford County Sheriff's Office on Sunday, August 21st, 2021, or 2022 rather. Let me look and see if there is a post in this that I missed somewhere. Yeah, this video is age restricted. Okay, yes, there is a tweet that's referenced in there that didn't load with the... I'm sorry, it's a Facebook post. Man, all the auto ads on this here. It's a good. That's the reason I archive when it comes from whatever this particular publication is. Alright, here's the Facebook post. In reference to the video circulating social media involving 2 Crawford County deputies, we requested the Arkansas State Police conduct the investigation, and the deputies have been suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. I hold all my employees accountable for their actions and will take appropriate measures in this matter. Let's park that over here again, just in case we have to go back and reference it again. Sheriff DeMonte says the deputy was told to go to the hospital and get checked for his injuries. The man, whose identity has not been released at this time, was booked into jail and then taken to an area hospital. The extent of his injuries is not known at this time. He faces charges of terroristic threatening, resisting arrest, second-degree battery, trespassing, aggravated assault, and being in possession of an instrument of crime, according to Sheriff DeMonte. That's a lot of stuff for him to be accused of at once, but still, I don't know that that warrants having somebody, after you're pinned and immobilized, bashing your face into the ground. That's just too much. And I probably give stronger leeway than most of my more libertarian-leaning friends. But that is just too much. The Mulberry Police Department released the following statement regarding the incident. The City of Mulberry and the Mulberry Police Department is aware of the video circulating on social media involving one of our officers. The Arkansas State Police has been asked to investigate the incident. The officer is on admin leave pending the outcome of the investigation. The City of Mulberry and the Mulberry Police Department will take these investigations very seriously and holds all their officers accountable for their actions. We will take appropriate actions at the conclusion of the investigation. As of Sunday night, the video has been shared on social media thousands of times. No further details have been released at this time. We will update you with more information as it becomes available. So, just so you know, this video, or this live stream, is probably going to be age restricted on YouTube. When you guys go back to watch the replay. But it's insane to me to think and to see what we're seeing here. From the USA Today, 3 Arkansas law enforcement officers suspended after arrest beating caught on video. From Robert Medley and Selena Tabor. 3 Arkansas law enforcement officers were suspended on Sunday over a video that showed 2 deputies and an officer striking a suspect under arrest. The video, widely circulated on social media, shows 3 law enforcement officers on top of a man under arrest, punching him in the head and kneeing him several times. An officer points to the person recording the video, ordering her to stop videotaping. Crawford County Sheriff Jimmy DeMonte issued a statement Sunday evening. We read the statement. Yeah, I can't believe. Oh, we have video or audio this time. Well, we still can't hear what the officers are saying, but it's interesting that there is the Metallica going on in the background too. I wonder if this is going to get blocked. But then the question is, and I know that they'll typically go to things like Taylor Swift or the Eagles because those are auto blocks on YouTube. If you're watching a video and you have the Eagles. Or even if you cover an Eagles song, receiving ignoramus claims. I've not seen this happen for myself, but even if you cover an Eagles song, like clearly your own composition, but with their lyrics, your video will get blocked on YouTube, allegedly. So I do have to wonder if that is the case of what's going on with this. Still can't hear what the officers were yelling, though. Police later identified the arrested man as Randall Wister, 27, of Goose Creek, South Carolina. Wister's been taken to the hospital for examination and treatment. Then he was later booked at Crawford County Jail in Van Buren, Arkansas, state police said. Wister was jailed on complaints of second-degree burglary, resisting arrest, refusal to submit, possessing an instrument of crime, criminal trespass, criminal mischief, terroristic threatening, and second-degree assault, according to the Arkansas State Police. And again, I would love to see what led up to this, what led up to get to this point. Asa Hutchinson got in on this. I've spoken with Colonel Bill Bryant of the Arkansas State Police, and the local arrest incident in Crawford County will be investigated pursuant to the video evidence and the request for the prosecuting attorney. Again, we've investigated ourselves and found that we did nothing wrong. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. However, I do want to point out that with music in the background like that, and I don't know who was playing it, if that was coming from the officers, if it was coming from the police car, if it was coming from a car behind the videotaper. But if it's coming from the police car, then they were premeditated to this. They knew that they were going to go out and do something that they didn't want to make it onto YouTube. Not understanding that we have many, 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 many more avenues to share this out now through. Let's grab one from THV CBS 11. Arkansas State Police launch investigation into 2 Crawford County deputies and Mulberry officer. Briefly on this, just to see if there's anything going on here. The video was taken at Country Express in Mulberry, Arkansas, and shows multiple law enforcement officers on top of the suspect that were allegedly using excessive force. Look, I know that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. But even there, I'm looking at this and saying, I don't know if we even need to say allegedly anymore. That one seems pretty cut and dry. And I would be interested to see what a defense attorney has to say about that. How they try to spin that. Or the police apologists, or the people who think that anybody who has a darker shade of skin than them is automatically guilty, no matter what. According to Sheriff Jimmy DeMonte, Alma police were called to the convenience store Sunday in regards to a man making terroristic threats to one of the employees. Wister left on a bike towards exit 20 in Mulberry. That's where the Mulberry officers and deputies were able to catch up with him. The conversation began in a calm and civil manner, but a sheriff said a man then allegedly began to attack one of the deputies and pushed him on the ground while punching the back of his head. This is what led to what was shown in the video. Let's see, we've got the Asa Hutchinson story. We've got the details there. So it looks like we're at this point pretty well caught up on this, but I guess the question now is, does this become... I mean, Wister appears to be alive. If he succumbs to his injuries, that's going to be a different story. But Wister does appear to be alive at this point. But are we going to bring BLM out before election time? Are they going to come out and say, justice for Wister? I don't know. Again, I would really like to know and see what happened immediately before this. Are these guys wearing body cams, I wonder? Go watch the video again, because I want to see. It does not appear that there's any place for a body cam. So I'm going to say right off the bat, no, that's probably not going to be the case. So, I still can't come out and say there's any justification for this. If the gentleman was mobile, up and going, and they were trying to subdue him, like high on meth or something, and he just couldn't be subdued even by 3 people, I would say, okay, maybe try to stun him that way. That still might be excessive, but try to go for a stun with a hit to the head. But as far as this goes, I mean, this is a person who's already immobilized. There's no need to go back and try to knock him out. Oh, that's the cringe one right there. Every single time. Wait. Hold on. Is homie white? Oh, I guess we can count BLM out from that. I can see dude's stomach. I don't think dude's black. Yeah, even if this started as resisting, he's clearly outnumbered and in a vulnerable position. There's zero excuse for this behavior other than the officers being massive pieces of crap. And Joel App says, he's resisting, full stop. It's in his power to stop this entirely, but he refuses to do so. Every non-compliance will cause him pain. Your boots, sir. Oh, and it's not hard to assume he's committed a crime. This isn't a random occurrence. I almost want to go through and read this jerk-off getting ratioed. Which he did get massively ratioed. That's one of the ones that I mentioned before that thinks that, well, and I guess we can throw color of skin out too, I guess. I didn't even realize that. Don't hit my face! Stop resisting! Don't hit my face! Stop resisting! Stop resisting! But that's what we have for that. And we will see if this comes up in a bigger fashion. From CNN. Opinion. This is an op-ed from CNN. The views expressed in this opinion piece are not necessarily the views of Contemporary or Turns of Pages Productions or the host. They are also not necessarily the views of CNN. These are the views of Jeffrey Sachs. So we'll read this, but do take this with a grain of salt. Opinion. 4 ways the Inflation Reduction Act doesn't live up to the hype. Which is interesting that this is coming to CNN. Maybe they really are changing things around over there. The Democrats are celebrating the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act over unified Republican opposition, claiming the legislation is a historic breakthrough. Sadly, it's not. Though the new legislation takes some steps in the right direction on climate and drug prices, it falls far short of what is needed. The Democrats, with control over the White House and both houses of Congress, squandered the historic opportunity for a progressive breakthrough. There are 4 big reasons to be skeptical of the Democrat Party's self-congratulation. 1. Despite its title, the new legislation will have essentially no effect on reducing inflation during the next few years. Shocked Pikachu face. I'm so shocked. How could we not know that? Today's inflation, running at 8.5% year over year in July, results from economy-wide imbalances of supply and demand. Even the small steps on drug prices within the new law, allowing Medicare to negotiate the prices of some drugs in 2026, will have no effect on current inflation, and only tiny effects later. 2. Most of President Biden's original social agenda was left out of the legislation. That's not a bad thing. Unlike the first draft of the legislation, under the original banner Build Back Better, the new law stripped out most of the social programs in Biden's original program, essentially because conservative Democrats blocked all the proposed tax hikes on the rich that were paid for such programs, and of course been passed on to you and me. 3. Democrats once again sided with campaign donors and lobbyists over everyday voters. Biden's initial plan called for at least partly reversing the unjustified giveaway to the rich in former President Trump's 2017 corporate tax cut. Hey, I'm not rich, and I got a significant tax cut from that. It also called for raising personal income taxes on the richest Americans and on ending some egregious tax loopholes. These tax objectives were abandoned when conservative Democrat Senators Manchin of West Virginia and Socialist Green Party Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona protected the rich rather than their own constituents. They went with the campaign contributions, not the voters. With no meaningful tax increases on the rich, the federal government will continue to run chronic and irising budget deficits as a share of GDP. Even with the legislation stripped of most important social initiatives, federal outlays are a share of GDP, are rising over time. As the U.S. population ages, healthcare costs rise as money continues to be squandered on record military budgets and overseas wars. Direct outlays on war since 9/11, including the current war in Ukraine, have cost $2.3 trillion, and many trillions more in other costs such as veterans' care. 1 second. Headphone check. Gotta bring that down in my ears. The longbward upward march of debt to GDP ratio will therefore continue when former President Reagan assumed office. The federal deficit was 24.6% of GDP. He sold the American people on the idea that they could have their social programs and tax cuts at the same time, yet the real result has been a 40-year buildup of public debt. In 21, the debt was 96.9% of GDP. According to most recent projection of the CBO, the debt will grow to a staggering 185% of GDP in 30 years on the current tax and spending plans. Well, I would say it's time to stop the spending, but progressives like you do not see the world that way. 4. The much-touted climate actions will deliver modest results despite the headline promise and bravado. We know. And that's what they have for that. And it's not hard to see. I mean, really, it isn't. They went through to go back and pass something before the midterms because they've had what has been essentially a do-nothing House and Senate, despite getting the honk-honk majorities. They still don't have a will to govern. From the Daily Wire. Nationwide pause on student loan debt set to expire. Biden officials expected to update borrowers soon. Yeah, they're going to keep going with that. From Brandon Dre. Miguel Cardona said Sunday that the Biden admin would announce the next 10 days whether or not the nationwide pause on federal student loan payments and interest accrual that went into effect 2.5 years ago would extend or expire. During an appearance on NBC's Meet the Depressed, Cardona told Chuck Todd, and we don't have the video of it, that the admin knows many people are waiting to hear something about the August 31st deadline on the current moratorium, which began under Trump admin at the start of the pinko-pox pandemic and has since been extended several times. We've been talking daily about this, and I can tell you the American people will hear within the next week or so, Cardona said. Cardona said the admin already released over $10 billion of student loan debt for 1.6 million borrowers under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which includes government organizations at any level. Public Service Loan Forgiveness was broken, he said. We fixed it so that our teachers and nurses can get loan forgiveness right away. Cardona said the admin was focused on ensuring it would protect students and borrowers from day one since taking on the previous admin's pause. The Biden admin has forgiven approximately $32 billion in student loans, many of whom attended schools that went bankrupt or faced litigation for misleading students and fraudulently conducting business. Last week, the U.S. Department of Education announced that it would cancel about $4 billion in the remaining 208,000 federal student loans for borrowers who attended the ITT from 2005 until the for-profit college chain dissolved in 2016. Officials also formally notified DeVry to pay back $24 million of approved borrower defense claims. Forbes Advisor reports that about 92% of federal loans make up the vast majority of American education debt, totaling $1.6 trillion owed by 43 million borrowers. In a separate report, the publication said that 2.7 million borrowers had their federal loans in forbearance. At the beginning of 2020, by the end of 2021, that number hit nearly 24 million borrowers. How? The payments and the interest were paused. How can you possibly be in forbearance? Biden suggests that he consider forgiving $10,000 of student loan debt for most borrowers earlier this year. With the freeze still in place, the admin has faced mounting pressure from advocates for student loan forgiveness and Democrats to cancel up to $50,000 in debt per borrower. However, canceling federal student loans for millions of Americans struggling to fulfill their end of the deal would end up costing the federal government hundreds of billions of dollars, and the general public would eventually financially suffer the consequences of that decision. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget reports that canceling up to $50,000 of debt per borrower could cost around $950 billion. It doesn't cost anything, man. That money just goes away. What? I don't know what it is that you were been taught in your modern monetary theory schools, but that's not how that works, and B, if that was how that worked, that would be even more catastrophic to the economy than the rampant inflation. Tara Miller, a student loan consultant at GradFin, which offers personalized student loan advice, told CNBC she believes the admin would likely continue halting payments. Based on reports from loan advisors that said borrowers wouldn't begin repayment as the moratorium's deadline approaches. I want to see if I can find video of Cardona on Meet the Depressed. That does appear that he is there with F. Chuck Todd. Let's listen to a little bit of this. do. A little bit of allergy fog, forgetting where I am. I feel like Joe Biden with that. All right, let's listen.
Miguel Cardona, Secretary Cardona, it's good to see you.
Hey, great to be with you again.
Look, I've seen a lot of your interviews this week, and you've talked about, look, we've got, there's a short-term crisis that we're dealing with, and we've got a long-term problem we've got to deal with. Look, you've thrown money at this, and I say this not disparagingly. The money is there to trying to deal with the short-term teacher retention bonuses and things like this. The problem is a human capital problem. You know, you guys can't legislate physical teachers for these classrooms. What is some of your answers to the long-term problem?
Well, I've seen good examples of what states are doing to address the long-term issue. Well, first of all, let me just say it is back to school time. I'm excited that our students, 50 million students are returning back to their classrooms. This is going to be a great year. And yes, we are dealing with a shortage issue, but some of the long-term solutions that we must focus on are creating grow-your-own programs. We need to tap the shoulders of our high school students, of our para-educators who are dedicated in our schools already, and give them a pathway to higher education. And we've strongly encouraged the use of the American Rescue Plan dollars to get some of this work done. And we're seeing it in Tennessee. They're working on an apprenticeship program. I visited Las Vegas, and the high school there has a partnership with UNLV to get their high school students connected into a teacher preparation program so they could be hired again. And again, I want to stress, Chuck, it's really important that I stress the American Rescue Plan dollars should be used for this. Now remember, only half of Congress voted for the American Rescue Plan, but 100% of our country can benefit from it, and that's what we're encouraging folks to do.
I tell you, though, it's a bit distressing that you talked about these innovative programs, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't find, if we had a shortage in people training airline pilots, we wouldn't suddenly, hey, let's see if we can fast track people who've ridden on airplanes while they learn how to teach it. I mean, what kind of damage are we going to cause to a generation here who are going to be taught by underqualified teachers?
Well, if you've heard my interviews, you've heard me say this teacher shortage issue is a symptom of what I call a teacher respect issue. We need to respect the profession.
All right, so they are actually going into what I was planning on talking about a little bit later here. So we're actually going to skip. Let's move ahead a little bit to this here.
Hey, we'll wipe away your debt if you give us 5 years in the school.
Yeah, that's great. And we do have examples of that across the country. Let me just mention, public service loan forgiveness was broken. We fixed it so that our teachers, our nurses can get loan forgiveness right away. We've forgiven over $10 billion in public service loan forgiveness to date. And we're asking folks to go on studentaid.gov to find out if you're eligible now. But moving forward, yes, we are encouraging the use of the American Rescue Plan dollars to offset some of those costs. That's a great way to incentivize teachers. But we're also saying, why don't we take our para-educators and give them...
All right, so that's what we see for that. Let's move on here. Back that up to the Daily Wire article. From Axios, Education Secretary bows decision on student loan pause coming soon. This might be more specified. I didn't realize the video was here in Axios.
The student debt crisis and finding a way to, I think there's a lot of people uncomfortable with just canceling student debt without something in return. Is there any way to take student debt and meet the teaching crisis and figuring out a way to incentivize, hey, we'll wipe away your debt if you give us 5 years in the school?
Yeah, that's great. And we do have examples of that across the country. Let me just mention, public service loan forgiveness was broken. We fixed it so that our teachers, our nurses can get loan forgiveness right away. We've forgiven over $10 billion in public service loan forgiveness to date. And we're asking folks to go on studentaid.gov to find out if you're eligible now. But moving forward, yes, we are encouraging the use of the American Rescue Plan dollars to offset some of those costs. That's a great way to incentivize teachers. But we're also saying, why don't we take our para-educators and give them some college credits paid for by the American Rescue Plan dollars to address the issue they've proven that they want to be in those schools, in those communities. Let's incentivize them going into the profession using the American Rescue Plan dollars. And although Representative Barr didn't vote for the American Rescue Plan, we know his community can benefit from it too.
I got to ask you before you go, we're 10 days away from the most recent moratorium on student debt to expire.
Yes.
Should we expect another temporary extension, or is a permanent fix coming?
You know, from day one, we've been really focused on making sure we're protecting our students and our borrowers. $32 billion in debt forgiveness from day one. We know August 31st is a date that many people are waiting to hear something from. We've been talking daily about this, and I can tell you that American people will hear within the next week or so from
it won't
the
be nothing.
and the Department of
Education. Is it fair to say it won't be nothing
around that? Well, I don't have any news to announce today, Chuck, but I will tell you the American people will hear directly from us because we recognize this is an important issue across the country.
I don't know. That sounds to me like they're not planning on doing anything. That they're planning on restarting it and saying, come on, man. Let's get more of this going. Pay your bills, man. Come on. I gave you the world's greatest economy. Let's grab one from the Hill. These borrowers will refuse to pay student loans if Biden restarts payments in 2 weeks. From Adam Barnes. Go away, video. A group of student debt borrowers over the age of 50 have vowed to withhold payments should President Biden end the federal moratorium on student loan payments in the next 2 weeks. The Debt Collective, an organization focused on ending student debt, on Thursday announced 50 borrowers who collectively owe more than $6 million in student loans will not make their payments should payments resume in November. Why do you have $6 million in loans if there's only 50 of you? And you're all over 50, so you were going to college when college was still cheap. Several of the holders hold balances of more than $300 grand, the organization wrote on social media. The 50 over 50 is part of our broader national debt strike, the Debt Collective tweeted. These 50 borrowers are going public to highlight the destructive impact of the student debt on older Americans, folks often erased from the conversations about the student debt crisis. These debtors come from a variety of racial and geographic backgrounds, and 4 in 5 strikers are women. None of these student debtors hold less than $10,000, leaving every single older striker still in the red should President Biden follow through with limited canceling plan, they added. Biden committed on the 2020 campaign trail to cancel at least $10 grand of federal student loan debt per borrower. Although progressive lawmakers and advocates have pushed for the president to cancel $50K, Biden said earlier this summer he will still weigh canceling $10,000 per borrower, but not considering $50K. Meanwhile, Cardona said this week that his admin is still weighing whether to resume student loan payments once the pause, which has been extended 6 times across 2 admins, reaches its scheduled end August 31st. While I don't have an announcement here today, I'll tell you that we're having conversations daily at the White House, and borrowers will know directly and soon from us when a decision is made. So we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes. But as the main focus of the interview was, from the Daily Wire, DOE announces millions in funding for colleges to train more minority teachers. From John Rigolizzo. Biden admin's Department of Education announced millions of dollars in funding for colleges to train more minority teachers. The DOE announced $8 million in federal funding grant on Friday, aimed at increasing the diversity of the teacher workforce and preparing teachers to meet the needs of our most underserved students. The grant is named the Augustus F. Hawkins, the first black politician elected west of the Mississippi River. It provides federal funding to support teachers' preparedness programs at historically black colleges and universities, so-called minority-serving institutions and tribal colleges and universities. At a time when we need to do more to support our teachers and the educator profession, Hawkins Center for Excellence will help increase the number of well-prepared and qualified teachers, including teachers of color in our workforce. Miguel Cardona said in a press release Friday announcing the program. We know that teachers of color benefit not only students of color, But all students, when teachers of color can see the backgrounds and experiences reflected in their teachers, we see higher levels of student achievement and engagement in school and more students aspiring to be teachers themselves one day. The Augustus F. Hawkins Center for Excellence program will target teacher training programs within these schools that propose to incorporate evidence-driven practices into their teacher preparedness programs. By virtue of the fact that these schools educate a disproportionate number of minority teachers, they are uniquely positioned to recruit, prepare, and place teachers who will provide culturally and linguistically relevant teaching in underserved and hard-to-staff schools, the Department of Education said in its press release. A little bit interested to see how this goes and what's going to happen with this, but it sounds to me like they're trying to fill a diversity quota, and as I've always said, for the majority of jobs, especially government jobs, they should be going to the most qualified people possible, not the most qualified people possible after we filled a certain amount of this gender and a certain amount of this skin color. And I'm really having a hard time understanding how we got to that point. I really am. From Politico. Lowering standards for teachers is unfortunate, Education Secretary says. From Olivia Olander. More competitive pay, not lowering standards for educators, should be a key part in addressing national teacher shortage, Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation. Unless we're serious about providing competitive salaries for our educators, better working conditions so they can continue to grow, we're going to continually deal with shortage issues, especially in our areas that are harder to teach or where there are less candidates, Cardona told host Margaret Brennan. Teachers should also have a voice in the process of reopening and reimagining our schools, Cardona said. The secretary addressed the states that have lowered standards for educators to recruit more staff, calling the measures unfortunate. Arizona no longer requires teachers to have a bachelor's degree, and Florida is offering temporary teaching credentials to veterans without certifications. Our students need more now, not less. I do not support lowering any standards for qualifications with teachers, Cardona said. The U.S. is facing a national shortage of 300,000 teachers and school staff, according to the National Education Association. New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, a Republican, defended streamlining processes to certify teachers, saying he detested the rigmarole that slowed things down. Streamlining the regulatory and permitting the certification processes, whether it's teachers or manufacturers, that's an opportunity every state has, he said on Fox News Sunday. We're doing it here. We're streamlining our whole thing. I have a few things to say on that, because that seems to be the focus right now, is the qualification of teachers. My first offering to this is, it is time to sit back and pay attention to what is happening in the background, school choice and homeschool. Now again, I know that way back when I was a kid, the homeschoolers were the weird kids with no social, and they were in a weird religious household or they were being bullied to absolute death, one of the two, when they were in the public schools. Those were the situations that we saw homeschooling. But as we see more and more of this, the diversity hiring, the demand that we have more teachers that look like the students and less teachers who know how to teach reading and writing and math. Get more of them into that teachers union paying in. I appreciate the fact that the private school sector is growing, and there's getting to be more support for non-government run schools, even with government funding. The money should follow the student, not the teacher, because these public schools are failing. And it might be time to, and I've said this a long time, but get your kids out of these schools. But we'll see what happens with that. I think we're going to skip over this one because we talked about this with the interview on Meet the Depressed. States use COVID relief funds to address teacher shortages. Yeah, that'll cover you for 6 months. Then what? Then everybody comes back out and has a tax rise because of it. More financial news here for you. CNN gets slammed for calling drop in gas prices a tax break, monthly raise in your income. From Chris Enlow. CNN was mocked on Friday over an analysis that characterized falling gas prices as a tax break or a monthly raise. After hitting a record high of $5.01 a gallon in mid-June, prices have fallen to $3.91 per gallon, according to AAA, on a national average. The glowing article, which reads like it was produced directly by the Biden admin, called the drop. It probably was. That's the problem. Called the drop in gas prices an unexpected form of economic stimulus. Yeah, everything else around you costs a fortune more than it did before, but hey, it only cost you $120 to fill your tank, not $150. Next time you stop at a gas station, think of it as a $100 a month tax cut or maybe a $100 a month raise, the analysis said. The article claimed the impact of the extra cash could be a substantial boost to the economy, suggesting extra cash could revive spending on non-essential items like clothing and electronics. No, I really think... I hate that I have to go back and put this out here again because this should be official financial advice, but this is not official financial advice. Is that if you're getting extra money for not filling your tank as much, you need to be putting that into a savings account because you are going to need it in the next few months. You are going to need that in the next few months. This is not official financial advice. While it's indisputable, the drop in gas prices translates to real savings for Americans financially strapped by the inflation crisis. To suggest it's a tax break or a raise in disposable income neglects the fact that gas prices remain significantly higher than when Biden took office. While Americans are benefiting from a drop in prices at the pump, those prices remain at more than 160% higher today than when Biden was inaugurated in January of 2021. CNN was panned for the biased analysis. Many critics pointed out that the gas prices are significantly higher, which means the recent drop is still a net increase. Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis, says, or a $36.50 a month pay cut from a year ago when prices were 73 cents lower. Kelly Armstrong, gas was $2.39 a gallon when the president took office. It's $3.92 now. Next on CNN, arsonist gets medal for helping to fight a fire he started. Eddie Zipper, weird that over the last year and a half, CNN has never once suggested we consider rising prices a tax hike. But gas prices drop a tiny bit and suddenly we get this. Joe Pagliarulo, radio host, you think we're dumb, huh? Wow. Yeah, and this is CNN just coming out here and doing the White House's work. Here is the article itself, and we'll touch over this just a bit here. Analysis from Chris Isidore. Americans just got a $100 a month raise. No, they didn't. Next time you stop at a gas station, think of it as a $100 a month tax cut, or maybe a $100 a month raise. Since the typical U.S. household uses 90 gallons a month, a $1.10 drop in prices equals a savings of $98.82. The impact of the extra cash could be a substantial boost to an economy that's showing signs of consumers pulling back on the purchasing of non-essential items such as clothing, electronics, and household goods. Major retailers, including Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and Gap, are cutting prices on those items after consumers shifted to more spending on food and gas. And that pullback in consumer spending is one reason why many observers are now forecasting a recession, since consumer spending accounts for nearly 3/4 of the U.S. economic activity. But the lower gas prices could help revive spending on those non-essentials. They could, and they probably will to an extent, but they shouldn't. And again, I'm going to come back out and tell you this, they shouldn't. If you are getting extra money left over, because you're not spending a fortune on gas and instead spending a massive sum, but not a fortune, then what you have left over should be going right in the savings account. Savings equals real money. Here's the thing with this article. Mr. Isidore is actually correct. Savings equals real money. And we saw this. During that week, and yes, this was partially because of reduced demand because of the fact that the Pinko-Pox was going strong and nobody was driving. But during those weeks in June and July, didn't it go for like 6 to 8 weeks? Where here in Wisconsin, in southern Wisconsin, it got all the way down to 91 cents a gallon. People were getting in the vehicle and driving and going and doing stuff, even though they weren't supposed to. Because they were excited. They'd never seen gas prices that way before. But they were taking that money that they were not spending in gas and putting it into other things. Amazon made a massive payout off of the lowered gas prices. And the food prices hadn't risen that much either. They were still on historic lows. I'm telling you right off the bat, when gas was 91 cents a gallon, I was at the local meat store every week because I could afford it. I can't now. But the problem is, well, yes, we are seeing real savings right now because we're not seeing $5.01 a gallon yet. We're sitting in a position where, again, we're up over $1.20 above where we were at Inauguration Day. And here we're $3 above where we were at the lowest point. That's just direct benefit. Lower diesel prices bring down the cost of transportation for all goods, including food, he said. If you add the indirect benefits, it's real money. And yet I haven't seen any of the grocery prices go down yet. I have seen the expenditures to get the stuff there go down, but the grocery prices have not gone down yet. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. From the Hill, let's talk about Liz Cheney. Democrats grapple with the possibility of Cheney 2024 bid from Hannah Trudeau. Liz Cheney's strong signal that she may run for president has Democrats talking about a pro-democracy, anti-Trump conservative candidate could do to President Biden's political future. Cheney, who lost the same House bid she easily won last time, delivered an impassioned concession speech about the dangers of re-electing the former Republican president in 2024. The next morning, she previewed her own possible prospects in a televised interview that added to the speculation that she may seek the White House term herself. It's something I'm thinking about, and I'll make a decision in the coming months, she told the Today Show. For Cheney, former President Trump and his strain of MAGA culture, as well as his defiance of the nation's basic principles, is something that she will do whatever it takes to stop. She told the network. For Democrats, however, her insistence offers something else, a big unknown to what's already expected to be an unpredictable election cycle. I greatly admire what Liz has done. She sacrificed her congressional career to stand up to Trump. Brennan Boyle told The Hill on Thursday. As for 2024, it's unclear to me. If she ran as an independent, that it would hurt Trump. There's a danger she might inadvertently help Trump more than hurt him. Well, she's not going to run as an independent. That's the problem. She's going to go... If she runs, she's going to run as a Republican. She's going to get curb stomped. Absolutely. She might go and run as a Democrat. I don't know. Over at the White House, Biden reportedly called to congratulate the number 3 Republican in the lowest chamber after her double-digit defeat. An act of bipartisanship that's second nature to the president, but that's become rare in an increasingly polarized nation. While many of the Democrat Party admire her service, the idea of country over party has been central to Biden's own political... What? Country over party has been central to Biden's own political life. And what inspired much of his successful presidential bid, there's no clear consensus as to how a Cheney candidacy could shake out. At what point is the Biden admin country over party? He's literally adding 80,000 IRS agents to increase audits on political enemies. Where has the Biden ever been country over party? Party is the basis of their sitting in the White House. Some Democrats see the conservative congresswoman splitting the Republican vote, especially breaking up the coalition around Trump and weakening him. In that scenario, these voices hope Cheney would hypothetically make Biden a stronger general election candidate, and her presence in the race would help make Trump a one-term president. However, others, like Boyle, have questions. They think she may chip off votes from Biden, who enjoyed a portion of support in 2020 from voters who disliked Trump and voted Democrat by default. With another GOP or independent option, that choice may be complicated. If she actually wants to run and try and win either a Republican primary or in the general as an independent, the people telling her to do so are delusional and or handcuffed to a green room installed on an Esila train, said Addie Vail, a Democrat strategist. The inevitable end result is her pulling anti-Trump votes from Biden. I love watching Democrats do this, by the way, and Republicans do it too to an extent, but there is such a dominance of the MAGA movement right now that I don't think that it even matters here. But when you're sitting here on a precipice, on a place, Democrats have been hard at this for the last couple of years. Hard against, completely hammered against third-party options, Libertarian, Green, Bernie Sanders getting into the race, and Andrew Yang's Forward Party. Because they know that their ideas suck, and the most that they have to run on is, look how evil the local Republican is, give us power, and we'll stop that person. And having more of an option there is, at this point, politically more likely to pull votes from them than it is to pull from the current iteration of the GOP. Couple that with the fact that the current president is historically unpopular, and the House is almost a foregone conclusion at this point, and we'll start to see where some of this shakes out. But as far as Cheney goes, it doesn't matter. Run third party, or don't. Or run GOP, or don't. You're not going to get to the White House without a major amount of honk. From Politico, Democrats switched party registration in Wyoming. It couldn't save Cheney. Yes, 28 people switching their party registration couldn't save Liz Cheney. From January 1st, 2022 to August 16th primary, there was a 20% drop in Democratic voters, while Republican voters jumped 10%. From Madison Fernandez, thousands of Wyoming Democrats left the party since July, likely spurred by calls to support Liz Cheney's uphill re-election campaign. It didn't make much of a difference. Cheney, the Republican who put herself at odds with former President Trump as vice chair of the January 6th Unselect Committee, knew that she had a difficult campaign against Trump-endorsed opponents, so she appealed across the aisle with a simple request: switch party affiliations and vote for her in the primary. But just 13% of registered voters in Wyoming are Democrats. The number of party switchers made little impact. Cheney lost to Harriet Hageman by over 60,000 votes. Voting records don't specify how many individuals are registering for the first time versus switching their party, nor which party they are switching to, but anecdotally, Democrats in Wyoming have said they re-registered as Republicans to vote for Cheney in the primary. Yeah, and how'd that work out for you? Cheney wasn't the only lawmaker calling for voters to make a temporary switch for her. An organization called Wyomingites Defending Freedom and Democracy ran two ads from Democratic reps Dean Phillips and Tom Malinowski earlier this month, urging Wyoming Democrats to vote for her. You might be a little surprised that I'd be supporting Liz Cheney in her bid to continue representing Wyoming in the U.S. House, Phillips said in his video. But principle must always come before politics, and nobody has shown more honor, integrity, and courage than she. Where? From the Daily Wire, Liz Cheney says she'll support Dems in races against some Republicans. The monoparty bullcrap that is the reason we have Joe Biden in the White House now. Of course she will. Because it's not about the American people. It is about power. Let's listen.
So this is obviously not the end. This is a new beginning for you. You're starting this political organization. What can you tell us? What are you going to do?
I'm going to be very focused on working to ensure that we do everything we can not to elect election deniers, and I'm going to work against those people. I'm going to work to support their opponents. I think it matters that much.
Will you be getting involved in campaigns against those Republican candidates that are challenging or denying the results of the election?
Yes.
Including your Republican colleagues here in Congress?
Yes.
It's whoever keeps the outsider outside of the White House. We'll shake out Democrat versus Republican later. We just have to make sure no outsiders ever get into the government again. That's what's going on here. I've got one archived here. This is... I don't know what this is from. The Nation. But this was put in the Discord, and I wanted to talk just a bit about this one here. This is from, of course, everybody's favorite white-haired MSDNC contributor, Ellie Mistel. And I thought that this was entertaining, to say the least. Liz Cheney's defeat on Tuesday in her primary battle against Trump-backed candidate Harriet Hageman proves again that the biggest problem facing the country is white conservative voters. It's not Trump or Florida Governor DeSantis and his quest to be Trump. With reasoning skills, it's not Fox or Alex Jones or other purveyors of the right-wing media. These characters and organizations are merely opportunists, flies that fatten themselves on a deeper rot. Nobody from Trump to Tucker would be able to threaten American democracy without the willingness of white conservative voters to trash everything to keep themselves in power. Well, no, the voters aren't in power, it's the politicians they vote for. Mr. Mistel, I don't know if you know how this works. Cheney herself was a beneficiary of the white conservative lust for power that she was a victim of it. Before she was a victim of it. The congresswoman, who is functionally a Virginian, is the representative from Wyoming because of her family name. Her father, Dick Cheney, was the state's lone representative in the House for 10 years. But he is better known as George H.W. Bush's Secretary of Defense and W's Vice President. Much has been written about the evil career of Dick Cheney, but he is popular with a certain kind of white person for his brutal projection of white American hegemony across the globe. Cheney Pere is the former CEO of defense contractor Halliburton, was one of the main drivers of the Iraq War, and supports torture. In a decent country, men like this must use their power from the shadows for the fear of being rejected by popular majorities. In our country, Cheney won multiple elections to various public offices. He's not telegenic or charismatic, he's just cruel, and cruelty was enough for his people. Liz rode that wave of legacy to cruelty to public office. She went to law school and worked with the State Department. She has focused most of her career on foreign policy, parroting the same Cheney family tripe about how liberals are weak and America needs to be strong, and somehow that means starting wars and violating international human rights. So Ellie Mistel is anti-war now. But once we start talking about Ukraine, he's going to get massively hard and say, we need to go and defend those people. After some time in the Fox News ecosphere and a failed run for Senate in 2014, Cheney was elected as Wyoming's sole representative in 2016 at the same time as Trump won the presidency. In Congress, she voted with the Trump admin 93% of the time, including during his first impeachment, which is odd. With her foreign policy bona fides, one might have expected Cheney to do precisely the opposite. Trump, after all, was accused of trying to bribe a foreign government to start an investigation into a political rival. No. Well, he was accused of it, but no, he didn't do that. She broke with her party for the second Trump impeachment when she decided that attacking the Capitol was wrong, and despite her years of loyal service to the Trump machine, she was drummed out of the party. Cheney's political problem is that her white conservative base doesn't think attacking the Capitol is wrong. Well, since nobody attacked the Capitol, that's probably true. so long as it's in service of continued white supremacy and... Oh, jeez, I can't read this anymore. Ellie Mistel, coming to the defense of Liz Cheney. Speaking of white supremacy, from the New York Post, off-campus, UC Berkeley students housing bans white people from common areas. From Natalie O'Neill. And with that, progressives have discovered segregation. An off-campus housing co-op for the University of California, Berkeley students bans white people from entering common spaces to avoid white violence, sparking criticism that the policy inflames racial tensions. The 5-story, 30-room person of color theme house near the school requires students to declare their race when signing in and announce that they are bringing white guests in the building, according to house rules leaked on Reddit.com. Many POC moved here to be able to avoid white violence present, so respect their decision of avoidance if you bring white guests, the rules declare. White guests are not allowed in common spaces. Let's see, the rules are: guest limit per house member is 5 guests. All guests must wear masks in common areas. Always announce guests in the guest chat if they will be in common spaces with you and if they are white. Guests are allowed in common spaces, but please be mindful that there are house members in the room beforehand. White guests are not allowed in common spaces. Do not leave guests alone in common spaces to avoid house members assuming it's a stranger alerting the house chat. Avoid bringing parents, family members that express bigotry. Queer, black, and indigenous members should not have to avoid common spaces because of homophobic or racist parents or family members. Be conscious of the amount of noise you and your guests are making in common spaces or in your room. Our house walls are very thin and we have quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. weekdays, 1 a.m. to 10 a.m. on weekends. The building, which houses up to 56 students a few blocks from the university, also urges students to avoid bringing family members that express bigotry, according to the College Fix. The building was set up by the Berkeley Student Cooperative to bring affordable housing to low-income first-generation immigrants and marginalized students of colors in the Bay Area. But some of the rules sparked outrage, with students saying they're too aggressive and defy the spirit of inclusion. One mixed-race student who claimed to have lived at the house says that their presence as a light-skinned person was not received well and they're called slurs. I was not allowed to let my dad into the house because he's white, the student wrote on Reddit. Another former member wrote a Medium article saying the house had earned a reputation for its aggressive call-out culture and lack of intersectionality. Adam Ratliff, Assistant Director of Media Reform, Relations and Critical Communications, told the Post the co-op housing is not run by the university and it's not the school's role to comment. Really? I think it kinda is. To be clear, it's not campus operated. The property is operated by a private landlord, and it's not the role of the campus to comment on what private landlords are allowed to do. But this is interesting. And it's really interesting to see. We saw it during the Roe arguments. Well, we should be able to come up with a contract that says if a man gets you pregnant and it can't get an abortion, then he has to support the child through age 18, and he has to support the mother too. I believe there exists such a contract. You typically enter into the contract in the front of a church in a white dress. And now they're discovering segregation for the first time. Interesting. A pushback against this from the Daily Mail. Famed environmentalist who studied at Berkeley slams woke college's dangerous anti-white racism that saw Caucasian students banned from communal areas of a POC student co-op. From Ronnie Reyes and Joseph Michaelis. Wow, that is quite the last name. Mikhalitsianos for DailyMail.com. a famous UC Berkeley alumnus, condemned off-campus co-op that banned white guests from entering common areas of the house to avoid white violence. David Seaborg, an environmentalist who graduated with a master's from the university in '74, told Daily Mail that the woke mentality at the school is dangerous, and that it's a recent development that is gaining traction. Things were different then, Seaborg, founder and president of the World Rainforest Fund, said. There wasn't the anti-white stuff you have now. It is widespread and has a lot of support among students in the liberal community, he added, not just in Berkeley, but also nationwide. Seaborg, who supports the Democrat Party, also said he believes the woke stuff will upset a lot of white voters that Democrats want to sway. The criticism came after the co-op, named the Person of Color Theme House, put up a new list of rules for the dwelling, revealing occupants were told many POC moved there to be able to avoid white violence and presence, so respect their decision of avoidance if you want to bring white guests. While the student house aims to have an inclusive environment, the rules specifically state white guests are not allowed in common spaces according to the list which was posted on Reddit. The accommodation, which is located close to Berkeley's campus, is a 5-story, 30-room home that can house up to 56 students. The house is owned by a private landlord. But the rules, which were leaked on social media, have caused outrage, with many people slamming the restrictions as racist, and others came forward and revealed their experience living in the co-op. So it's an interesting situation that we have at the very least. A white student is seen in the kitchen of the co-op during a tour. Where are her pants? Am I the only one that's questioning that? Is this girl walking around in her underpants? I mean, it is college, but still. Speaking of which, from the Blaze, overwhelming 62% of college Democrats would never share a room with a Trump supporter, but a whopping 73% said Biden shouldn't run again. Honestly, this is kind of an apples and oranges thing. From Paul Saka. I know that Paul is trying to make this an apples to apples thing, but this is an apples to oranges thing. College students who are Democrats have such an overwhelming disdain for Trump supporters that a majority of them would never be roommates with someone who backed the former president, according to a new poll. NBC News Generation Lab conducted a poll of 1,077 students, sophomores of the class of 2025, between August 12th and 17th. The survey of the college students found that Democrat college students were far more unlikely to embrace Republicans than vice versa. The survey found that 62% of college Democrats would probably or definitely not room with someone who supported the opposite presidential candidate in 2020. When asked the same question, only 28% of college Republicans said they wouldn't want to be roommates with someone who supported the former President Biden. I'm sorry, current President Biden. That was a Freudian slip with wishful thinking. There were 53% of college students who said they probably or definitely would not go on a date with someone who supported the political candidate from the other side. There were 63% who said they wouldn't marry someone who supported the opposite political party in 2020. Despite the partisan support, 73% of Democrat supporters overwhelmingly call for Biden not to run again. However, there were 57% of Republican supporters who want Trump to run again. A 19-year-old Republican told NBC News, "A person's political views do not affect whether or not I would have a friendship or relationship with them. Many of my friends have vastly different political views than I do, but I do not let that affect our friendship." While referencing Trump, an 18-year-old college student declared, "I could never live with someone who supported a racist, homophobic, xenophobic, and sexist person." Participants were heavily skewed towards Democrats, with 54% of survey takers saying they would vote for a Democrat candidate if the election for the U.S. Congress were held today, versus only 23% who said they would vote for a Republican. When asked about the top political issues, the participants named rights for all, the economy, climate, and abortion. There were 49% who said that abortion should be legal in all cases, 33% said legal in most cases, 14% said illegal in most cases, and 4% said illegal in all cases. The poll found that 67% of college students got their news from social media, following 10% from the news websites and only 7% from television. A poll published last month also highlighted the ever-growing political divide of the nation. So, interesting to see as we get more and more divided. Maybe we'll have the Civil War that Tim Pool keeps talking about, or the one that I wrote about 9 years ago. It's interesting that I saw a lot of this coming 9 years ago already. On the opposite side, Texas mandates donated "In God We Trust" displays in schools. No author given from Axios. Texas schools have started receiving posters of the national motto "In God We Trust" that they will be required to display in accordance with the new state law. Those opposed are sounding the alarm about the law, arguing it imposes religion on students and flies in the face of the expectations that schools be secular. I don't think there is any expectation that a school be a secular place. The law that passed last year says elementary and secondary students must display in conspicuous place in each of the buildings of the school or institution a durable poster or framed copy of the U.S. national motto if the signs were donated to the school district or bought with private donations and given to the district. We just felt like there's a great opportunity to display our national motto in our public schools, State Rep Tom Oliverson, who co-authored the bill, told KHOU. This was an idea I had after seeing something similar happen in a couple different states. These posters demonstrate the more casual ways a state can impose a religion on the public, Sophie Elleman-Golan of Jews for Racial and Economic Justice told The Guardian. Alone, they're a basic violation of the separation of church and state, but the broader context, it's hard not to see them as part of a larger Christian nationalist product. The community group South Lake Anti-Racism Coalition issued a statement after the Carroll Independent School District received posters to put in each school there, per CNN. SARC is disturbed by the precedent displaying these posters in every school will set in the chilling effect this blatant intrusion of religion in what should be a secular public institution will have on the student body, especially those who do not practice the dominant Christian faith, the group wrote. Worth noting, several states have passed similar laws requiring the display of the motto in recent years. So, reading through this, I'm not a big fan of this in and of itself for the same reasons that a lot of the progressives are. Well, it's a religion, and religion, they're taking away from the worship of the state. How can they do that? Look, the first thing is these public schools are already teaching a religion. Worship the state. The top Democrat in the country can do whatever it is that you want. They are your deity. Just worship the state, worship everything that happens there. That's already happening, and that's been happening since I was in school. For God's sakes, they told us that the President of the United States was the most powerful person in the world when I was in elementary school. Which unfortunately is true, but it shouldn't be. The president should be kneecapped. But it does seem like, number two, that this... I still don't care for this entirely, and I wonder what other organizations can come back out and call for signs to be put up if a private citizen brings in. But it does sound like this... It's not that the state is going to be providing the signs for the schools. It's that if private donors give a sign to the school and it is the national motto and nothing but the national motto, they have to go back and put it up on the wall. Is what it sounds like. And I mean, it's on the money already, so there's that as well. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. But I'm sure that our friends to the left are not going to be quiet about it. From CNN, public schools receive In God We Trust poster donations as new Texas law requires their display. Yeah, it's almost like that was planned. From Rebecca Rios. Texas school districts have begun receiving donated posters and framed copies of the national motto, In God We Trust, that they will now be required to display in accordance with new state law. The law says a public elementary or secondary school or institution of higher education must display a durable poster or framed copy of the motto in a conspicuous place in each building if the poster or framed copy is donated for display at the school or institution or purchased from a private donation and made available to the school or institution. So it is only in effect if somebody goes and specifically buys the motto for the school. But I'm sure that we've got these groups out here that are finding out about this law and purchasing them in bulk and making sure they get to every school. State Senator Brian Hughes, a Republican co-author of the law, tweeted last week, "The national motto, In God We Trust, asserts our collective trust in the sovereign God. The people and organizations behind the donations have wasted no time sending them out to schools." Yeah, surprise. The Carroll Independent School District in Southlake, a suburb of Dallas, on Monday received In God We Trust framed posters for each school in the district from Patriot Mobile, which describes itself as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Scott Coburn, the company's chief marketing officer, told the school board, "Patriot Mobile is honored to donate these posters to CISD, and we're very excited to see them amongst all of our schools." The posters will be displayed in the front entrance areas of each Carroll ISD campus. Brandy Egan, the district's communications coordinator, told CNN. So, we'll see how that goes. I've got this feeling this one's going to get challenged. It might stand up to scrutiny, based on the fact that the state is not providing the signs. They have to be provided from an outside donation. But I don't know that this is actually going to stand up if it gets taken to a higher court, once it hits a federal court. I've got this feeling this one's going to get struck down. Let's talk about Los Angeles. From KTLA 75, LAPD shuts down street takeover attempt. From Mark Sternfield. Police shut down an attempted street takeover in West LA before it could get started late Friday evening. Jacob Rogers with ANG News captured video of the LA police vehicles converging at the intersection of Sawtelle and National Boulevards, where hundreds of people had gathered, some with modified vehicles. Rogers says officers, when we say modified vehicles, are we talking like rice racers, or are we talking like the Killdozer? Rogers says officers at the scene requested backup and eventually cleared the intersection and a crowded gas station parking lot. No arrests and no damage to businesses were reported. The street takeovers have become an increasing problem in LA and elsewhere in Southern California, with some resulting in fatal crashes and shootings and the looting of businesses. On August 15th, the street takeover mob ransacked a 7-Eleven at LA's Harbor Gateway neighborhood. So, do we see the street takeover? Because I'm not 100% sure what it is that they're referring to. Perhaps Fox 11 will give us more details because they're announcing a crackdown on it. LAPD announces enhanced enforcements to crack down on illegal street takeovers. From Alex Chidbakian. The LAPD is cracking down on illegal street takeovers, saying they have zero tolerance policy as the dangerous crime is happening more often. "We can't really stop this from becoming a new trend where they think they can just show up and take over a street, freeway, or any part of the city," said LAPD Detective Ryan Moreno during a press conference on Thursday. The police department announced new enforcement measures. Anyone participating in or attending a street takeover will have their vehicle impounded for up to 30 days. Detective Marino said on a typical weekend the department could impound 5 to 10 cars, but that number is sure to go up in the coming days if takeovers continue to occur. Cars will start disappearing really soon, Marino added. Yes, the state coming in and taking more of your property. That's always good. The new enforcement comes just days after a large street takeover in Harbor Gateway led to a flash mob looting and vandalizing a 7-Eleven. In Compton, the city recently installed small yellow dots known as bots dots to discourage street takeovers. The dots were installed at several intersections, including Santa Fe Ave and Compton Boulevard, as well as Wilmington Avenue and Caldwell Street. City officials say they'll explore putting the dots in other Compton intersections if they prove successful in deterring street takeovers. I am curious, because I don't know what this is going to do to deter a street takeover. Let's listen.
The street takeovers is now in place at the intersection of Santa Fe and Compton Boulevard. These blue dots are supposed to stop tires from spinning, which would prevent cars from doing donuts, tearing up street and surrounding property. This is not the only Compton intersection with dot bots, as they call them. The city identified the locations most frequently targeted for street takeovers, and if dot bots prove to be effective, they may be placed in other locations.
Well, first off, if you've got enough power, those dots are not going to stop your spin out and your donuts. I can tell you that right off the bat. But so it sounds like they're blocking off the streets and having...
ASAP Rocky pleads not guilty to assault charges. The rapper who's...
Shut up, you. It sounds to me like what they're doing is they're basically doing what was in the beginning of The Fast and the Furious, or Too Fast, Too Furious, where they're coming in and they're blocking off a certain street so they can go do street racing, but also in the midst of it coming out with a flash mob and looting stores around it. So it's like what they did in Too Fast, Too Furious, but times 10. But hey, let's keep defunding the police. From The Blaze. Georgia-based anti-colonial political group accused of kidnapping, arming, and attempting to recruit the homeless. From Candace Hathaway. The Black Hammer Party, an anti-capitalist and anti-colonial political group, is currently being investigated for several criminal offenses, including kidnapping and human trafficking, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported on Tuesday. Black Hammer leader Augustus Claudius Romaine Jr. and a top lieutenant Xavier Kino Rushin were arrested for alleged participation in kidnapping and sexual assault that occurred in July. The crime took place in a home which the group had rented in Fayetteville, Georgia. Federal and local authorities are investigating the group for additional drug and weapons offenses. Fayetteville Police street gang investigator Diana Snyder testified that she began investigating the Black Hammer Party when she discovered that the group had relocated its headquarters to her town. Snyder was called to testify regarding a kidnapping case in which Romaine, 36, and Rushin, 21, were allegedly involved. The victim was a homeless man who claimed on July 19th the suspects kidnapped him, locked him in a garage, and held him at gunpoint. Both members have been charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, conspiracy to commit a felony, and participation in street gang activity. The defense attorneys for the two group members argued that a political party could not be labeled a street gang. Snyder stated that Romaine also forced other members to engage in sexual acts with him to advance their positions within the group. For that accusation, Romaine received an additional forcible sodomy charge. When police arrived at the group's home in July to make the arrest, Romaine went live on social media and stated, "This is just going to build me up at the end of the day," reported WSB TV. One of the group members, Amante Adams, 18, who had been accused of pointing a gun at the alleged kidnapping victim, was found dead inside the Fayetteville home when police went to investigate. Police stated that he appeared to have died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. However, the Black Hammer Party accused police of shooting Adams. During her testimony, Snyder reported the FBI had noticed Black Hammer Party members attempting to recruit and arm homeless men in downtown Atlanta. She also noted that federal investigators reported that the group aggressively requested donations from college students. Aggressively requested, does that mean robbed at gunpoint? In the area, at this point, no charges have been brought up against the group regarding those allegations. Well, I guess that's an interesting place to recruit people from, is the homeless. Hey man, go commit this crime and we'll get you a meal. From the Daily Wire. Report. Royal Air Force stops hiring white men to keep with diversity quotas. Female head of recruiting quits in protest. Diversity is our strength, apparently. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. The British Royal Air Force has allegedly hit an effective pause on offering jobs to white male recruits to keep up with diversity quotas, according to a report from Sky News. Several defense sources told Sky News that Air Chief Marshal Sir Mike Wixton, head of the Royal Air Force, seems willing to compromise UK security at a dangerous time in the name of diversity. You look at the head of the RAF and he's prepared to break the operational requirement of the Air Force just to meet diversity higher targets, one source says. I think he needs to be holed up on the Ministry of Defense and told, this is defense agenda, get on it. The head of recruitment for the Royal Air Force, who is a female officer, has even resigned from her post to protest the alleged change, Sky News reported. The senior officer handed in her notice of resignation in recent days as reports leaked about the racially restrictive hiring, fearing the change would undermine the strength of the Royal Air Force, sources told the outlet. Rishi Sunak, a hopeful to be the next Prime Minister, slammed the RAF for the alleged change. The only thing that should matter in your recruitment is the content of your character, not the sex or color of your skin, Sunak said by a spokesperson, according to Fox News. That the Ministry of Defense would allow Britain's security to potentially be put at risk by a drive for so-called diversity is not only disgraceful, it is dangerous. The Royal Air Force has denied the pause but emphasized its commitment to a diverse workforce. Well, there's no pause in the Royal Air Force recruitment and no new policy with regards to meeting in-year recruitment requirements, a spokesperson for the RAF said. What is the white percentage of population in England? .4. I think that's higher than it is here. Which tells me, especially in a small country that's basically comprised of 2 islands at this point, and not 3/4 of the known world like it used to be, that's telling me that maybe you're just looking to pause in recruitment, because to pull all of your recruitment from the remaining 21.6% of your population, and only from there, seems like a suicide mission to me. Let's talk about the Women's March. A thread. Let's talk about Andrew Tate, Johnny Depp, Marilyn Manson, and the pervasive culture of misogyny and sexism that puts women in danger every single day. Andrew Tate is an American-British TikToker and former pro boxer. He was kicked off Big Brother when a video surfaced that appeared to show Tate hitting a woman with a belt. He's also a misogynistic POS. He's been accused of rape and charged with sexual assault. He was investigated for trafficking a woman who claimed Andrew and his brother kidnapped her. Tate says the rape victims bear some responsibility. He believes women belong in the home and are a man's property. Right now, Tate's going viral on TikTok, where he's freely spreading his views supporting and enabling rape culture for millions. But Tate is just a symptom of the problem. The fact that men like Tate are allowed to freely spread misogynistic anti-woman views is nothing new. Sexism is as old as time and as common as dirt. Sexism and misogyny are reasons that so much of the internet believes Johnny Depp, not his victim, Amber Heard, despite all the evidence of his abuse. They're the reasons Depp and his buddy Marilyn Manson's fans turned to harass Evan Rachel Wood, as soon as the Depp trial ended, even though Wood's abuse at Manson's hands is well documented too. When society sees abused women as conniving bitches rather than the victims and survivors, that's rape culture and misogyny at work. If women with the privilege and resources of Amber Heard and Evan Rachel Wood can't be believed, there's not much hope for the rest of us. Women deal with harassment online and in person. We hear from a young age that if we wear short skirts or crop tops, we're asking for it. Every woman you know has a story of harassment or assault. Women's lives are on the line every single day. Believe women, end the violence. And the Women's March got widely panned over that. Mostly over the fact that they appear to be showing an incorrect version of the trial. And people, rabid feminists, are walking away from the Women's March because it seems to be that the only thing that they come out with, the only thing they have to say is all men are bad and all women are good. Teresa Marcos says, never thought I'd be unfollowing the Women's March, but standing by Amber Heard is unforgivable. No one can listen to those tapes or read her actual claims and say she told the truth. You're not standing up for survivors like me when you hold up a bully like her. All the evidence of his abuse, like what? She claims her nose was broken, she was punched in the head till she blacked out, he kneeled on her back while beating her, he dragged her through broken glass. There's zero evidence for any of those claims. And looks like Twitter won't... Oh, there we go. Please stop. I marched with my pink hat. I volunteered at a women's shelter and rape crisis center. Very rarely a woman lies about the abuse. Men who abuse women have a pattern. Their exes can point to abusive behavior, but in JD's case, all of his exes stated that he is not an abuser. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see somebody take their ideological views to their logical endpoint and get destroyed over them. I can't believe that didn't get ratioed either, by the way. Some other things that probably failed. From the blaze 1 year in, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's $1 million gun tip line has rewarded only one tip for just $10,000. From Joseph McKinnon. Lori Lightfoot, Chicago's Democrat mayor, announced on July 15, 2021 that she would create a $1 million reward program through the Chicago Police Department's tip line for people who call in reports of illegal firearms. Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown said this incentive will not only bring honest people forward because of the anonymity, but likely it will bring people who may be involved who have a conscience. The Chicago Tribune reported that according to police, 1 year into the program, only $10,395 of the $1 million on offer has been awarded to tipsters via Crime Stoppers. Cook County Crime Stoppers will similarly pay tipsters for information resulting in the arrest and filing of felony charges against an offender in the amount of $1,000. According to a CPD ad for Lightfoot's gun trafficking and homicide tip line, tips leading to charges of someone buying or selling 10 or more guns will get a tipster $3,000. If the tip results in a conviction, the reward is $5,000. If a tipster brings information to the CPD's attention, which results in homicide charges, he or she will be awarded $10,000. A May 1st Fox 32 report noted that the gun tip line paid out its first award of $10,000 if $10,395 had been awarded to date, and the first $10,000 award was conferred on May, then given the CPD's prize breakdown, there hasn't been more than one actionable tip phoned in. I'm sure that looked better on paper. Beetlejuice. From the Daily Wire. Black farmers say Inflation Act is betrayal of promise of debt relief. From Charlotte Pence Bond. Black farmers are starting to wonder if they'll receive the debt forgiveness they have been promised after a measure was passed last year to prioritize them for such action. When the Emergency Relief for Farmers of Color Act passed last year with the American Rescue Plan, it provided $4 billion in debt forgiveness to farmers of color from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This is a big deal for us, John Boyd Jr., president of the National Black Farmers Association, told CBS Money Watch at the time. We see this as a great opportunity to help thousands. The concept was met with pushback, and white farmers brought forward at least 6 federal lawsuits against the measure, since it didn't allow them to try to receive the funds due to their racial group. Those suits are all still pending. Oh, I thought that got shut down already. I really did. The debt forgiveness measure, however, was taken out of the Inflation Act before many farmers could get the money. The new Inflation Reduction Act gives $3.1 billion to distressed borrowers and an additional $2.2 billion to farmers who have experienced discrimination from the USDA while taking race off as a measure of eligibility. So, I actually thought that got shut down already because of the inherent discrimination of it. But no, I guess this is still going strong. So, you've disappointed your people. Here's an interesting one. A few weeks ago, I didn't even know who this person was, except for the fact that he was one of the safe accounts that kept getting promoted onto the top of my Twitter feed. And I don't see him anymore. I don't know if he blocked me, which would be funny, like John Cooper did. Or if he's just, because he's been accused of assault, has been taken off the safe user list. From USA Today, $70,000 CEO Dan Price, who cuts his pay so workers earn enough, quits amid assault allegations. From Scott Gleason. Dan Price, the Seattle-based CEO who drastically cut his own pay in 2015 so that workers could earn $70,000 each, resigned on Wednesday. Price, the embattled 38-year-old CEO of credit card processing company Gravity Payments, resigned from the company he founded 18 years ago, he told his 100-plus employees before making the announcement on Twitter. My number one priority is for our employees to work for the best company in the world, but my presence has become a distraction here, Price wrote in a statement on Twitter. Chief Operating Officer Tammy Kroll will take over as CEO, he said in a tweet. Price stunned his workers when he told them in 2015 he was cutting his roughly $1 million salary to $70K and using company profits to ensure everyone there would earn at least that much within 3 years. But Price has recently come under major scrutiny. Earlier this year, Seattle prosecutors charged him with misdemeanor assault against a woman and reckless driving. Prosecutors say Price tried to forcibly kiss a woman. He pleaded not guilty in May. The case remains ongoing. I also need to step aside from these duties to focus full-time on fighting false accusations made against me, he wrote on Twitter. I'm not going anywhere. Price has also run into other legal troubles. His brother Lucas sued him in 2015, alleging that Price was overpaying himself. A King County judge ruled that Dan had not violated Lucas's rights as a minority shareholder. But given the fact that they put Elon right off of the top, or right on the bottom rather, on the top of this stack of the 10 richest people in the world, tells me Dan Price is doing this because he has an unbounded allegation against him. And now he wants to tell Elon to go back and do the same. From Insider. Meet a Canadian man who's sharing his vasectomy experience to encourage men there and in the U.S. post Roe vs. Wade. On behalf of the entire human race, I thank you, good sir, for taking yourself out of the gene pool. From Yelena Zhanova. The news of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe enraged Oliver Charbonneau, even though he doesn't live in the U.S. The 20-year-old is from Canada and had gotten a vasectomy just months before the Supreme Court decision, and once the news dropped, he used the social media to persuade other men to do the same. Vasectomy is a safe alternative to female... that's not soy enough for this guy. Vasectomy is a safe alternative to female birth control, Contraception is not only on women, but... Contraception is not only on women, man, but on us men, He wrote in a lengthy Facebook post in June. Be smart, make the right choice, In an interview with Insider, Charbonneau said he had noticed that only his female friends had ever spoken or thought about birth control. Women were talking about how shocked they were about what's happening in the U.S., he said, but men, they were all silent. No one was talking about it. Despite the fact that he does not live in the U.S., Charbonneau said the news is still applicable to him and other Canadians. Even though the decision was teased in May when Politico published a draft Supreme Court opinion, signaling the reversal of Roe, the news shocked Charbonneau because, he said, it's not impossible that people will try to do the same here, Here in Canada, we're kind of protected, but what will happen if it were here? If the loss of rights were in Canada instead, At the same time, speaking out in favor of vasectomies as a way to show solidarity with women in the U.S., he said, I realized we had stepped back from the progression of the women's rights, We're taking a step back. We're taking away rights. I think in the U.S., I'm like, whoa, it's a huge, huge regression about the rights. You can't even decide if you want to keep it or not. Well, Mr. Charbonneau, you have done a great service to the human race, and I advocate that for taking yourself out of the gene pool, we convince President Biden to award you the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Speaking of Canada, from my PG Now, this was put in the Discord, and this is just my first chance getting around to it. I've been running out of time to get to this one for a week. Unvaccinated mothers facing up to $50,000 in maternity leave repayments to BC government. From Will Peters. Mothers on maternity leave who are not fully vaccinated against the pinko pox working with the BC Public Service are not only at risk of losing their jobs, but repaying the entirety of their maternity leave top-up benefit as well. Their stories all share similar key points. For these women, maternity leave started before October 2021 and before provincial vaccine mandates were announced for the BC Public Service workers. They all decided to accept the government's top-up benefit, which pays about 80% of the usual salary in a given position, expecting to go back to their job on the predetermined return-to-work date. This is agreed to with the knowledge that if you quit, find another job, or otherwise miss your return-to-work date, you'll be liable to pay back that amount. This return-to-work date cannot be postponed. The province instituted its vaccination policy for employees on November 8, 2021, requiring employees to be vaccinated in order to be hired or continue to work. If a mother on maternity leave is unvaccinated and is denied an exemption, they're in a position to miss their return-to-work date and be liable to have to pay up the entirety of the top-up benefit, from $20,000 all the way up to $50,000 in some cases, or they can prove vaccination and return to work without a problem. While signing the contract to agree to take the benefit, these mothers had no idea that the government's policies and terms of their employment could change while on leave. A statement from the provincial government to my PG Now reads, the vaccination policy stipulates that BC Public Service employees who do not receive 2 doses of vaccination against the pinko pox or refuse to disclose their vaccination status and do not have an approved exemption request are to be placed on leave without pay for a period of at least 3 months, after which they may or may not be terminated. That sounds like garbage. Imagine, if you will, a government that is so soy that they say, you know what, We won't put it on private employees to have maternity leave, which our government does that too. But we want to make sure, and we have taxpayer-funded health care for all. And then here's your maternity leave that we give out to the government. But hey, if you don't get the vaccine and you can't come to work, sorry guys, you're on your own. And by the way, we'll take that money back up. I think Truth is the Light actually has it right. I mean, this is like the antithesis of women's rights. It's a punishment for those who chose, and especially those who chose to keep. From CBS News, looks like we gotta refresh this one, or archive it. No, I'm not going to whitelist this. I'm keeping my ad blocker on, and there's nothing you can do about it. From CBS, Kabul mosque bombing kills at least 21, including prominent cleric. Yeah, who could have seen that coming? No author given. A bombing in a mosque in the Afghan capital of Kabul during the evening prayers on Wednesday killed at least 21 people, including prominent women, and wounding at least 33 more, police and an eyewitness said. Khalid Zadran, the Taliban-appointed spokesman for Kabul's police chief, gave the figures to the Associated Press after Wednesday's bombing of the Sunni mosque. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, the latest strike in the country in the year since the Taliban seized power. Several children were reported to be among the wounded. The local ISIS affiliate has stepped up attacks targeting the Taliban and civilians since the former insurgents' takeover last August, and the US and NATO troops were in the final stages of their withdrawal from the country. Last week, ISIS claimed responsibility for killing a prominent Taliban cleric in his religious center in Kabul. According to eyewitnesses, residents of the city's Kirkana neighborhood, where the Siddiqiyah Mosque was targeted, the explosion was carried out by a suicide bomber. The slain cleric was Mullah Amir Mohammed Kabuli, the eyewitness said, speaking on condition of anonymity, because he was not authorized to talk to the media. Yeah. Who could have seen that coming? Speaking of which, barbaric Islamic terrorist El-Shafi El-Sheikh was sentenced to life for abuse and deaths of 4 Americans. I don't really want to read this, I just want to question whether or not this is actually Colin Kaepernick. Because I think it is. What do you guys think? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Is that Colin Kaepernick? Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing yourself as a suicide bomber. El-Shafi El-Sheikh is a Sudanese-born former British national who joined ISIS and committed atrocities in Iraq and Syria. He was convicted in April of hostage-taking, resulting in the deaths and other crimes. At a U.S. District Court hearing in Alexandria on August 19th, El-Sheikh was sentenced to life in prison. El-Sheikh, the most senior ISIS terrorist to stand trial in the U.S., had a hand in the imprisonment, abuse, and deaths of American hostages Jim Foley, Steve Sotloff, Peter Kassig, and Kayla Mueller. Whereas Foley, Sotloff, Kassig were executed on camera, the footage of which was widely circulated online, Mueller was enslaved, raped by ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and then killed. On December 27, 2019, al-Baghdadi died like a dog, like a coward, in a dangerous and daring nighttime raid ordered by former President Trump, wherein numerous other ISIS militants were reportedly killed. Yeah, I still think that's Kaepernick. From CNN, Texas is sending migrants to New York and Washington, D.C. by bus. Many are glad to go. Well, I mean, Of course they want to go to the northern states. If you escape from prison, you don't hang around in the prison yard. And if you jump the border, you don't hang around in the border state. Actually, a lot of people still do. From Gary Tuchman and Clifford and Christina Maxoris. Genesis Figueroa and her husband spent more than a month traveling from Venezuela to the U.S. border, an exhausting journey interrupted only briefly when she was hospitalized with pneumonia in Guatemala. Less than a week since finding shelter in Eagle Pass, Texas, after crossing the Rio Grande, they embarked on another trip Thursday morning, this time to D.C. on a bus. They're among the thousands of migrants sent by bus from the Lone Star State to D.C. and New York this year at the direction of Greg Abbott in an effort to highlight his criticism of the Biden admin's immigration policies. Before we began busing migrants to New York, it was just Texas and Arizona that bore the brunt of all the chaos and problems that come with it, the governor said in a statement this week. Now the rest of us can understand what exactly is going on. Abbott said on Friday the state had sent more than 7,000 migrants by bus to D.C. since April, and more than 900 in New York City since August 5th. Many, like Figueroa, are happy to leave Texas. The buses are stop at several cities along the way to the northeast, allowing migrants to disembark to reunite with friends, family, and other locations in D.C. Figueroa and her husband will meet with their friends. But officials in New York have pointed to the conditions of the trip, saying migrants arriving in those buses are hungry, thirsty, and often sick. We've been on the road for so long, we don't mind 2 or 3 more days, Figueroa, 28, told CNN in Spanish. Neither do cousins Luis Polito and Einer Garrido, who spent 6 weeks traveling from Venezuela to Texas. Polito's younger brother did not make it to the U.S. with them. He disappeared when the group was swimming across the Rio Grande. Shelter officials in Texas told Polito they found his brother's body. He had drowned. But the cousins have made it this far, and they're determined to continue with their plans. They will board the bus to D.C. and will get off before their destination in Kentucky, where their relatives will be waiting to pick them up. And like was pointed out in the very beginning of this, these people are not being compelled to go to this. They're being told, hey, do you want a ticket? Sure, we'll send you over there. We'll pay for it. Just go up over there. Have fun. And part of it is, I'm sure they want to be as far away from the border and Border Patrol as possible. But also, they heard on the news that these people in D.C. and New York were so welcoming, so open-armed. Of course they're going to want to be to those people. Wouldn't you? From the Daily Wire. We're almost done here. Let's finish off these last few. D.C. Mayor dodges questions on why she won't allow unvaccinated black students in schools this fall. We can watch Muriel Bowser appear to avoid addressing a question on why she will not allow unvaccinated black children back in the classroom this fall by claiming that the statistics she was provided with were inaccurate. Though many school districts have moved away from such restrictive measures, D.C. mandates that children 12 and up be up to date on required vaccinations before returning this August. A significant portion of D.C.'s black students is not vaccinated, sparking concerns that the mandate disproportionately affects these students. And on Monday, Daily Signal's Douglas Blair questioned the D.C. mayor about how she could justify forcing 40% of unvaccinated students to stay home from school. Now, is this all vaccines, or is this the vaccine? That's going to be my question for this.
A few questions. Yes.
Hello, my name is Doug Blair with the Daily Signal, and the question I have is that we have reporting that around 40% of black students in the district are unvaccinated, and therefore, under the district's current policy regarding schools, will be unable to attend school come the school semester starting. So why is the district continuing with this policy when it seems to disproportionately impact black students?
I don't think that number is correct. We have a substantially fewer number of kids that we have to engage with vaccination. And I explained why it's important. It's important for the public health of our students and that we can maintain safe environments.
It is interesting. It's interesting that she's wearing a toilet earring too, but it's very interesting that they claim that they want to have the indoctrination for all, but are still standing in the way of giving the indoctrination to all. From the Associated Press, California governor proposes extending nuclear plant's life. From Michael R. Blood. You should also build a whole bunch more of those, by the way. California Governor Gavin Newsom on Friday proposed extending the life of the state's last operating nuclear plant by 5 to 10 years to maintain reliable power supplies in the climate change area. The proposal to keep the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant running beyond a scheduled closing of 2025 gave new urgency to a decades-long fight over the seismic safety of the site. And critics depicted Newsom's plan as a huge financial giveaway for plant operator Pacific Gas and Electric, while warning it could gut the state's environmental safeguards. Newsom's draft proposal includes a potential forgivable loan for PG&E for up to $1.4 billion and would require the state agencies act quickly to clear the way for the reactors to continue running. The Seaside plant, located midway between LA and San Francisco, produces 9% of the state's electricity. Gotta get those numbers up, guys. The proposal says its continued operation beyond 2025 is critical to ensure statewide energy system reliability as climate change stresses the energy system. The governor has been clear for months about the potential need to extend the life of Diablo Canyon, Newsom spokesman Anthony York said. He added that Newsom has stressed the need to keep all the options on the table to maintain reliable power, and that this proposal reflects the continued need to keep that flexibility. Newsom's proposal is an attempt to unspool a complex 2016 agreement among environmentalists, plant worker unions, and utilities to close the plant by 2025. The joint decision was endorsed by utility regulators, the legislature, and then Democratic Governor Jerry Brown. Environmental groups depict the move as dangerous betrayal of the 2016 pact. Legislators should reject it out of hand, said a joint statement from the Friends of the Earth, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and the Environmental California. I think you should keep it open, and in fact, I think that they should go back and open about 10 more of them across the state. And put 10 of them in all the rest of the states, too. We have one in Wisconsin. It does power the Manitowoc area. No, the one in Kenosha, Pleasant Prairie rather, is that's a coal plant, I believe. I wish we had more nuclear here. I really did. Here's one that might depress our friend Quest Fanning here. Mexican president calls for end to beer production in drought-stricken north. From Lewis Thomas. In a move that could have dramatic ramifications for several major brewers, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has proposed ending beer production in northern Mexico due to water scarcity. On August 8th, at his daily press conference, Lopez Obrador said, "This is not the way. We won't produce any more beer. It's to say that we won't produce any more beer in the north. That's over. If they want to keep producing beer, increasing production, then all support for the south or the southeast." The increasing severity of the droughts in northern Mexico has been particularly noticeable around the city of Monterrey. In the state of Nuevo León, Benjamin Ordonez Diaz, a researcher at the Monterrey Institute of Technology, told the Washington Post that the growth of the industry and a population boom have increased the demand for water, while climate change has made the weather more erratic and rainfall less likely. The drought in the past decades only affected cattle, and farmers in the beginning, but this moment it affects families, affects farmers, cattle, and all the industries who've been developing in the area. Of those industries has been brewing. Cuauhtemoc Moctezuma Brewery, a subsidiary of Heineken, has a facility in Monterrey, as well as several others around northern Mexico. Across all of its sites, it produces approximately 3.09 gigaliters of beer annually, enough to fill a 1,200 Olympic-sized swimming pools and 70 million bladders. Heineken Mexico released a statement on August 3rd that said, "We delivered 500,000 cans of drinking water, committing ourselves to generate 7 million more cans to be distributed to the communities of Nuevo Leon. Households in the region have had to ration water for weeks." In addition to organizing tankers to deliver water to those in need, one group also announced at the time that 20% of the water used in Monterrey plant would be assigned to the local water and drainage services network. DB has reached out to Heineken Mexico to ask for its response to Lopez Obrador's latest suggestion. What the hell is a gigaliter? From CNN. Follow-up from what we finished off on last week. Wisconsin Public School District affirms ban on teachers displaying pride materials or identifying their pronouns in emails. Also, Thin Blue Line materials, Support Our Troops materials, MAGA materials, and everything else, but that doesn't make a CNN headline, interestingly enough. From Andy Rose and Aya Elamorosi. A ban on teachers displaying pride materials in classrooms or writing their pronouns in email signatures will remain in place in a Wisconsin public school district following a contentious board meeting during which parents and students criticized the policy. The prohibition is based on Kettle Moraine School District's decades-old policy that bans partisan politics, sectarian religious views, or selfish propaganda. This new interpretation also bans teachers from putting their preferred pronouns in their email signatures. We're in a world where politics are highlighted and puts people in uncomfortable positions, Superintendent Stephen Plum said in a July board meeting, where the guidelines were first announced. The district also prohibits teachers from having other banners deemed politically contentious, including Make America Great Again or Black Lives Matter, Plum noted in July. But again, we don't talk about that. We just talk about the trans and the pronoun because people might kill themselves. A cross necklace would be permissible. He added discreet jewelry, I think, is acceptable. A ban on items considered political applies only to teachers and staff, not to students and board members. The policy was revisited Tuesday in response to passionate community debate, with an hour of public comment on the issue at the board meeting. Most of the people who spoke, including several students, opposed the policy. I know people who cannot come out to their parents, said Abigail O'Connor, who identified herself as a queer student in the district. They aren't accepted at home, so they look for acceptance at school, but now that acceptance is slowly fading away. Look, you can go pretend to be whoever you want to be at school. That's fine. But the teacher can't put a sign up over it. And that's the way that it should be. You learn the basics. They're not teaching you what to think, they're teaching you how to think and figure it out on your own. Or at least they used to, they don't anymore. But yes, this is confirmed, and CNN got to put their spin on it as well. Alright, just a couple more, then we'll go over to the Daily Ignoramus. And before we get into the last one here, after we finish up with this one, somebody go tap Arvold, make sure that he's here, because this last one I put on the stack specifically for Arvold. But before we do that, from the Daily Wire, 10-year-old celebrated as youngest transgender model on New York Fashion Week runway. From Amanda Harding. A 10-year-old child who reportedly identifies as transgender just became the youngest transgender model to walk the runway at New York Fashion Week. Noella participated in the trans clothing company show, which was created by designer Mel Atkinson, according to Metro. I'm sure that Mel Atkinson himself is also probably Metro. It feels good that I'm already inspiring trans kids to be themselves. Current guardians Ray and Dee McMayer, guessing that there are no parents involved in this, told the publication that Noella, a biological male, began socially transitioning at the age of 4. Oh, this makes my brain hurt. Both parents identify as non-binary, because why wouldn't they? Per Noella's Instagram account. Noella really doesn't get nervous or scared by anything. She's a tiny professional, the set of the child on the runway. She was so excited to go down the catwalk, excited to see all the people and the cameras. She knows exactly how to work a crowd. Boy, this has Desmond is Amazing vibes to it. We are so proud of Noella for being the first trans child in New York Fashion Week. We are in awe with her confidence and determination, the child's parents continued. Noella has already so many transgender people of all ages contact her for advice and support. Noella is very outspoken and an amazing advocate for other trans kids. It's great that she can provide this trans visibility on a global scale. She's showing them that trans is beautiful. Dee explained that toddler-age Noella used to throw tantrums over certain clothing, which led to the child's parents to seek therapy. That's when Dee says Noella claimed to be a girl. Noella had a rough start to life, even if she was extremely unhappy being perceived as a boy, Dee said. Even when she was 2, she said she was not a little boy. And I'm sure that having non-binary parents probably didn't help the cause any either. Well, this makes me want to die. This makes me not want to live on this world anymore. But sure, go ahead and sterilize another young boy. Darwin Ward, again. Alright, and the last one. This one is for our meme smiths here, especially Arbold. From NBC. Girl behind the girl explaining meme says that she has a new boyfriend now. From Wilson Wong. Huh. I wonder if he was Wong to put this article in here. An image of an impassioned girl yelling into the ear of a guy who appears to be indifferent to what she's saying has captivated the internet. She's the girl explaining, and seemingly everyone finds her relatable enough to meme. People, politicians, brands, and companies have used the image to explain niche subjects ranging from legislation to astrology, using all caps captions to mirror the girl's and the image's vibe. Though the image went viral in the US this week, the photo first appeared in Spanish-speaking circles in 2019, according to the meme database Know Your Meme. The girl in the image is Dinu Sanchez, who told Know Your Meme that the photo was her and her then boyfriend in a club in Argentina. They have since broken up. Another girl took a photo, and we were behind them, Sanchez says, who did not respond to NBC News' request for an interview. But she wasn't actually explaining something to him. In fact, she told Know Your Meme she was just trying to sing a cumbia song. That might be worse. By the way, let's get the meme up here, so you guys know what it is that we're talking about. This is the one that they're talking about. She wasn't actually explaining something to him. She was trying to sing a cumbia song. The meme is a distant cousin of the bro explaining meme, which refers to a photo of a man in a Houston Astros shirt speaking to a blonde woman in a white tank, according to Know Your Meme. Brandon Wink, a Know Your Meme editor, said he has seen a lot of inside jokes from many different communities proliferate from the girl explaining. The main difference between it and its bro explaining meme counterpart. Now that we have a woman's mouthpiece to attach this knowledge to, Wink said. So actually, going fine-free means that people who avoided the library because of their fines are now coming back, and often they're the folks who need us the most. Also, no, we have not seen an increase of lost or stolen books. It turns out that when you trust people to be kind to each other... There's one for the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act was a fantastic step towards lowering carbon emissions that we should celebrate. But if we stop fighting for future climate action, then we aren't doing what's scientifically necessary to save our planet. We should start by eliminating fossil fuel subsidies. Nice, I like that one. Unfortunately, and as BJ over on Twitter pointed out, Bobby Joe, nobody cared about the story. They just wanted to make the meme. I believe her exact tweet was, "Thank you, nobody asked." But it's still funny. Alright. With that, we're done for the day, but the last thing we do is we check out one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, because we are, I believe, all ultra-capitalists here. I think we had one socialist here, briefly, but I believe he, she, it, they, them, their, Zer took off. So, instead we will go in and check out and look at our lesson for ultra-capitalism for the week here. Every day on Monday, I go through one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. We talk about it, and we talk about how it can be applied in the real world to our real lives. Some of them can be, some of them cannot be. So last week, we looked at the 95th rule of acquisition, expand or die, from False Prophets, talking about the two that were from the original, from the Next Generation episode, who got flung through the wormhole to the Delta Quadrant and used their powers to go to a pre-warp civilization and perceive themselves as gods, so they could make profit from a civilization that at that point did not know profit. And going on to the same theme, we move on to the 97th rule of acquisition, enough is never enough. This comes from the DS9 reference book, which I'm surprised doesn't have all of the rules of acquisition, because we are missing a lot of numbers here. But we can read from this, and we can talk about what this means now. Enough is never enough. It goes on to the same theme as expand or die. I could come out and say one day down the road, when we're getting 1,000 people per stream chatting, and I can no longer write the names down of everybody who chatted or keep up with any of the chat anymore. We can move down onto that. We can move down to the point where I can only take super chats, which means I would have to monetize on YouTube, which opens me up to a litany of other problems, especially with 2 strikes now. 1 warning and 1 community guideline strike, I should say. That opens me up to a litany of those kinds of things. But do I stop there at 1,000 viewers per live stream, or do I keep expanding more? Do I try to get more people to come in here? And that is the point of that. Yes, you can be satisfied with the way that your life has turned out, with what you have. But if you become complacent on that, somebody can come in and move in and take your profit. Enough is never enough. Continue to try to grow, to try to build your wealth. We're capitalists after all. We can sit down and say, and for a lot of people, 3 squares in the frying pan, a bed, a roof over your head is enough. But realistically, take some time. Make it bigger, make it further, make it better. I've started mentioning new names in here because once we get started going on the Turns of Pages family, I do want to bring all those people on board. Mr. Behavior, Brady Leonard, PJ Patriot. I want to get all these people on board and build a better community of people who are ready to go out and give you news and culture by the common man for the common man. News, culture, video games, music, all kinds of stuff. It doesn't just have to be coming here and reading about the news and the government. These big woke companies don't care about you, and the Daily Wire and Timcast have it right, and we need to do more of that too. So, some stuff to watch for, but enough is never enough. If I take over a bigger audience than even CNN has, then it'll never be enough. Until we've taken over enough of an audience and changed the culture to where we want to be. Not through votes, but through dollars. Through the dollars of the people who want to spend the dollars. Enough is never enough. So, speaking of dollars, by the way, if you guys like what you see, there are several links going through the chat and in the description if you guys want to come back out and hand me a little bit or throw me some bits over on the Twitch side or anything else like that. Or a sub. Just saying. If you guys want to do that, that's always out there, but we're going to head out of here for the day. Cutting in on probably one of my favorite songs on this playlist too, but we've got an outro for a reason, because I have a lot of respect for the man who made the outro, even though it's not up on the screen right now. And I don't know why. Oh, yeah, because I had to do important security update. I also don't know why all this stuff is over here, because it's all supposed to be in the middle screen, but alright, so with that, we're out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by, chatted in with the live chat. Came in, hung out, kept me company while we go over some of this terrible news. We got through everything, that's the good news. And we didn't have to talk about Mar-a-Lago for the first time in 7 days. Plus, we're back on the main channel once again, so if you guys like what you see, or you just tuning in now, you can go back to the YouTube and check out the program as it went. Otherwise, we'll get the recording up here. We'll get it up on the audio platform. You can check us out over there. And we will see you here later on, hopefully today, for more Eddsworld Gaming. I don't know if I'm going to do a game stream or not. There are a couple things that I have to do, including trying to get set up for the Rumble stream, but we'll go back and hopefully do that. I do hope to take some time and some wind down time for you guys, but otherwise we will definitely be back here tomorrow morning for more contemporary, more news, more headlines, including a talk about the natural gas prices and what that's going to do for the common man. So looking forward to seeing you guys there. Stick around if you're on Twitch for the raid. I think it's going to be for the Daily Ignoramus. Let me make sure that's actually the case before we get started, but definitely looking forward to seeing you guys here tomorrow and in the next chat. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.